Hi Jeff.
Will, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to chat with you. We've been chatting a lot on YouTube and Facebook, but not face to face, so to speak. So
I know. I know. So yeah, this is kind of cool. I feel like I know you already.
yeah, I wanted to introduce you to my viewers because I really like your channel, and it's a it's a positive channel, and I think you're roughly my age. I'm 46, and you're 43. Is that right?
44. Yeah, you're
44 now.
46.
Yeah, I'm 46. Yeah,
And I wouldn't have given you 46.
yeah, same to you. So
Yeah,
44. That's
thanks.
pretty cool. Like so, us older guys got to stick together and.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, hey, Will's audience.
yeah, yeah. So I really like your channel. You've got you talk about your diet. You interview doctors, and you've got kids, and
Yeah.
your workouts and lots of different topics. Spreading the healthy eating message and veganism. And do you want to tell us any more about your channel as far as what you're doing, what you're planning to do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. I appreciate it. I've been kind of following you for a while when I was just getting started and looking at people that I could get ideas from and look up to. And I like your channel because for the same reasons, it's very positive, and you like to research and put out some great facts and crack some jokes and put some recipes up, and I just like that. So I appreciate what you do. Regarding my channel, it's interesting because just like I wasn't expecting to go vegan, and it happened, and I'm really happy that it did because it changed my life in so many different ways. I wasn't planning to do a vegan YouTube channel. I just wanted to do a channel. And I kind of couldn't avoid it because of my diet and my ethics and my way of living. It just kind of rolled into that and kind of took off. And my viewers kind of, they would tell me or show me what they wanted to see. So I kind of went for what I wanted to do in combination for what they wanted to see. So that was kind of how the channel got going and gained momentum because it's still relatively a new channel. I think it's around 8 or 9 months old, and but yeah, it's getting some momentum, which I'm really happy about. And regarding the way it's set up, I don't really have like a structure of what I'm going to put out and when. I kind of go more intuitively, kind of like how I eat. Um, I don't necessarily plan my day of eating. I just kind of go with how I feel, and but I do make sure I get certain nutrients. And it's the same with the videos. Um, I'll wake up one morning and have an idea, and then I'll roll with that and just do it. And I'll wake up another morning and say, I want to do a workout video today, and I'll do that. And the next day I'll say, hey, I kind of need to get a recipe video up, and it just kind of goes that way. And in terms of how the channel is going to develop, because I kind of do it intuitively, I don't really know. I just kind of go with how I feel and what I want to get across. And sometimes I feel more like delivering an ethical message, and so I'll just do that. Sometimes I think, feel like doing a food video, and I'll just do that, and then a workout video. So it's kind of like a whole lifestyle, and then kind of incorporate my kids into it every once in a while and my wife into it, just to kind of show that a person can be married with kids, have a business, be relatively busy, and still take care of his or her health and family's health. So, how will the channel develop from here? I don't know, but I'm happy to be here, that's for sure.
Yeah, same here. I don't really have a plan for the most part. People ask for things, like you said.
Right.
The vlogs, like my life is pretty boring. I'm at home most of the time. So if I ever do go out, I have to try to film it because it's like, like the other day I went to the dentist and it was like, over 6 months that I leave the house and if I go grocery shopping. So it's not too exciting, but people get to know you and they kind of want to see what you're doing. And the fact that you have kids, like people ask about what to feed the kids if you're vegan.
Yep.
Is your wife doing it? All those kind of questions. So it's great that you're talking about that. The other thing when I watched your channel, I think you might have commented on my channel at one point, and I went and checked you out, and it's like this guy's so talented, like dancing and performance, and it's the gymnast background and everything, and it was inspiring as well from all the different talents
Yeah.
you have.
Yeah, I mean, I am 44 years old, and I have had some history behind me. And growing up, I was a gymnast and a dancer and a singer and a performer. I was on stage a lot. And, at some point, I got tired of letting other people try to decide for me how my career would go. And it's one of the reasons also why I opened up a YouTube channel, because I kind of just wanted to have creative control over myself. And so those elements just kind of pop out every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah, it really adds to the because like I get inspired by your channel as well. I see what you do in editing and like the spins and I just think I got to take it up a notch here. Like I'm, so that's great. One of the when I called my channel Potato Strong, it was kind of based on Rip Esselstyn when he had Plant Strong, and there's like the firefighters, and it showed that men can do this, plant-based vegan lifestyle and be
Right.
strong and things like that. But I called it Potato Strong because it sounded more appetizing than Plant Strong to me. It was sort of a take on that, and I also discovered that plants or potatoes were super filling. Like when I started eating vegetables, I was really hungry, and when I ate potatoes, it was like an awakening to say, oh, So one of the reasons I'm not like really an athletic person per se. I see myself as sedentary. Like my job was generally a computer programmer, engineer before that. But then I went into I've been playing guitar since I was 11, so a lot of sitting. And I've done do sports and things like that in school, but I didn't perceive myself as like an athlete or anything. So, and I want to show that people, especially in our age range, can get most of the results from a healthy diet and like
Right.
80-90%. But as I lost weight and felt better, I started to do some things. I bought a chin up tower and a dip,
Yeah, I saw that. That's cool.
and that that wasn't really expected. I don't want people to think that they have to work out a lot and do all this stuff to become to get healthy and lean. But uh, what I wanted to talk to you about this time specifically was kind of the muscle building, the bodybuilding, or not so much bodybuilding, but just the weightlifting aspect and muscle growth, because that's when people work out with weights, they generally, I like to have more muscle. There's other people that do long distance running or cycling,
Right.
and they have a different body type. There's not a lot of, they're mostly, there's not a lot of extra muscle because it kind of weighs you down and slows you down. So what I like about you and what I'm interested in and other people would be having a bit more muscle as far as the look goes. So would you like to talk about, I'd like to ask you about your current workout routine as far as, let's say what you might do in a workout if it's split or if you do it all in one shot, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, my workout routine, like I told you before, I've been working out and exercising, in different ways my entire life. But I've never tried bodybuilding until recently, and it started kind of with the beginning of my channel. I think about a month after my channel got started, I did my 30-day muscle building challenge, and I was a trainer in the past, and so I know how to build muscle, and but I never knew what a bodybuilding routine was like, and it's different. I mean, I know how to build muscle, I know how to train people, I know how to kind of sculpt the body. If I want to work the posterior deltoid and build that area, I know how to do that. If I want to build the lats, I can do that. Whatever, I can focus on and build that area. And so I was doing that for the first 4 or 5 months. My muscle building challenge video was 30 days, and I showed some really cool results. And the interesting thing about that was because my diet was so clean, my plant-based diet was so clean, and I don't take protein powders or use any bodybuilding supplements, I just eat food, that I actually lost weight after that month. I lost about, I think, 1 pound, but I actually gained in muscle mass, size. So I lost body fat and gained muscle at the same time. And so I kept doing that. And I was doing basically a push-pull legs routine where I do the pushing muscle groups, which is basically chest, shoulders, and triceps one day. And then the next day I would do back and biceps. And then the next day I would do legs. And then I would just repeat. And I might take a rest day in between. And that was working just fine. And then I hit a plateau after about 4 months because I was kind of doing the same kind of workouts the whole time. I wasn't really changing it up. And then I got in touch with a vegan bodybuilder friend of mine, and he gave me a program that, because I wanted to take it up a notch, and I felt like my reach was becoming wider the wider I got. You know what I mean? Like the bigger I got, the more people were inspired by the fact that, someone that doesn't take protein powders and bodybuilding supplements and doesn't depend on things like that and just eats regular whole plant-based foods and a clean diet is actually building and growing muscle. And I do have a couple of videos where I actually show my results as I go. And just lately, I've been really starting to actually notice a difference in the girth, my width and my size. And so what I've done lately over the past month or so since I made my transition or the change, I'm doing the same split. So push-pull legs, and then I repeat push-pull legs. But the first push-pull legs day is strength training. So I do low reps, multiple sets, different exercises, and basically work on strength training. And then the next 3 days are more muscle hypertrophy or muscle growth, where I do like a medium weight to light weight. So I'm doing repetitions of between 6 to 15, depending on which exercise it is and what set it is. It's kind of really, the routines are actually pretty long. So I'm working out about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half every day, 6 days a week now.
Wow.
So yeah, because I have my goals, because the more I do to prove that you don't have to eat animals to build muscle, you don't actually even have to take protein powders, even though some vegan protein powders and some vegan supplements can actually be helpful. The more I grow, the more impact I seem to have. And for me, it's kind of like a all-encompassing goal for this muscle building concept. For me, it's not just I want to build muscle and strength. It's I want to prove some things, and I want to help the animals. I want to get people healthier off of animal-based products and onto plant-based products, even if it's simply just going from animal-based protein powders to plant-based protein powders. So stuff like that. So the more I train and the bigger I get, and I feel like right now I've gained about 8 pounds, or between 3 and 4 kilos in the last 6 months. So, and that's without really gaining any body fat. So I think I'm doing a pretty good job. And so I'm kind of like in between someone that trains and a bodybuilder right now. And the closer I get to bodybuilding status, just the broader reach I have.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're breaking a lot of myths there. Like when you said that you could build muscle and lose fat, people think that you need a lot of extra calories in order to bulk and add even fat to get during that stage of gaining muscle, which I don't really believe is true.
Yeah, well, a lot of people what they do is the body's actually trying to get specific nutrients when the body's being taxed like that in the gym. So when you're going for intense workouts and you're trying to build muscle and you're tearing muscle tissue, your body's asking for specific nutrients. And sometimes people can, with their appetite also, they can eat so much food just to try to get some specific nutrients that the muscles need for repair, like the specific branched chain amino acids, especially leucine. And so they'll eat a ton of food just to get specific nutrients, but at the same time, they're overfeeding. So they're growing, they're getting bigger muscularly, but they're also getting fatter as well. And so that's kind of what's called a bulk phase. And I'm actually trying to do that and stay lean at the same time. So like I said before, I've gained about 8 pounds in the last 6 months, which may not seem like a lot to bodybuilders or whatnot. But if I actually gained body fat at the same time, I could be upwards of 12 to 15 pounds since I started. But I'm not doing it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, like you say, with the plant protein versus the plant foods and not needing the animal foods. Also, the age, like at 44, putting on muscle where you would think that you got to be in your 20s or something like that. You're not going to gain much muscle as in that.
Yeah. It's another myth. I mean, obviously, at a certain age, things start to slow down a little bit. Testosterone levels start to drop, and we, as aging men, we have to give our bodies a reason for those levels not to drop. And the more we eat, because eating is anabolic. And exercise is anabolic. And the more we do those things at this age, the more we can actually still grow. So we're kind of teasing our body to keep, that youthful hormonal growth thing going on. Ultimately, I'd like to eat less. So I don't know I like the concept of building muscle and training without any kind of aids, supplements, or bodybuilding aids. But at some point, I may try a natural vegan, maybe branched chain amino acid, or maybe some pea protein or something like that, just so I don't have to eat so many calories. Because I know that the people that live the longest are the people that don't gorge on food every day, the people that eat less. And so at some point, as I get older, I may want to start eating less. So, but for now, I'm kind of cool doing it au natural.
When you talked about the past when you were a gymnast, and I look at gymnasts during the Olympics and things like that, and they're pretty muscular, like doing the rings and all that. And obviously they're using body weight, I would assume, most of the time. And that's kind of what I do myself. And what about like the muscle memory, like from your past? Like you've been lean and you've had muscle before. Is any of the muscle gains like muscle memory, and what would be an addition to that? Because I know you didn't do bodybuilding before, but
Right.
did you regain some of that and then you've added to it? Do you think like new muscle that you've
Totally. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think what you do as a child, because I was a gymnast between the age of 12 and 23, so about 11 years. And during that time, I was growing. I was in my, biggest growth spurts. And so gymnastics gave me shoulders and back. I had this really awesome V and some good shoulder muscles. And I'm actually closer to an ectomorph, so I've got really, really thin joints. So people look at my videos and like, yeah, well, you're not an ectomorph. I'm having a hard time putting on muscle. And actually, if I never worked out and I didn't train when I was younger, I probably would be very, very thin. And so if you just look at my joints, they're really kind of skinny. But so my gymnastics past kind of gave me a muscular frame, and it also helped build bone density. And I think what people don't quite understand is that when they're starting to train and they do resistance training, even if it's body weight, that the bones are actually becoming more dense and as well. So the whole body is growing. It's not just the muscles that are growing, the bones are growing as well. And so the frame actually grows. It's not just muscular. And so yes, I did get that. But during my 30s, I had a lot of body pain from all of those, years of gymnastics. But it wasn't really all the gymnastics. I was eating a diet that was inflammatory, all the animal products. And I was never a junk food junkie and into processed foods. I just would eat a lot of I would eat really simple foods, but a lot of animal products. And I found that during my 30s, I was so inflamed, and every time I went to work out, something would hurt too much to actually allow me to continue working out. So I kind of took off, and I got relatively thin, but I still had kind of some shoulders and some back. Still had that going on. And when I started bodybuilding or muscle building, whatever you want to call it, those areas popped out first. And I've always had a hard time building chest and legs, and now my chest and legs are catching up with everything else. So a lot of the muscle that I've built in the last 6 to 8 months is brand new, fresh, plant-based muscle. So, I did have some body parts that were weaker and smaller, and they've been growing, just like everything else.
Yeah, it's good that you brought up. I was going to ask you about this, the ectomorph, mesomorph. Like, I've sort of felt that I'm kind of a mesomorph in the sense that, or there's another way to look at it, is it's like the calories, the food that you absorb. I'm talking to another guy after this, and he has been lean. Like you said, you've been naturally lean, and I've seen the older pictures of you where you're, obviously you did exercise and body and gymnastics, but I've always felt like I had extra fat. I wasn't obese or anything, but it's always been a struggle. And when my wife and I, even before this, we were vegetarian. Like I started out more ethical, but I sort of thought, well, I'm not going to eat dairy, or I'll only eat dairy because they don't kill the cow for the milk. But then and the eggs, I'd buy free range eggs and stuff like that. So I was more in my mind at the time like an ethical vegetarian, or the drive was from the ethics. Um, but I would gain way more weight with that kind of diet than my wife. And ectomorph is one way to look at it. And so, do you think there's a difference in approach between? Because I talked to another guy who said he's an ectomorph, and he said he has to eat like 5,000 calories, and he's struggling. And as soon as he stops, he's going to lose the muscle. Whereas I think I sort of keep anything I've gained in the past, like it's kind of hard to lose, and the fat as
Yeah.
well. So it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time from the two different body types. Do you think there's a
Yeah.
difference in approach to working out from, or in how you approach eating from an ectomorph?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, everybody at some point has to become their own coach, their own intuitive guide, because 5,000 calories for me, I would actually put on body fat. But some people do different kinds of sports. Long distance running, and sometimes people do HIIT training, and they do bodybuilding, and it differs from sport to sport. And, just like there's no one vegan diet for everyone, and a lot of people, that's why I don't make a what you should eat video. I always kind of make what I eat videos, because it's really all about what I do. And if someone can get something for themselves out of that, because I get a lot of comments on my videos, wow, you only eat 3,000 calories a day. If I ate 3,000 calories, I'd waste away. And then another guy will say, or girl will say, hey, if I ate 3,000 calories, I'd, become fat. And so, I do little disclaimers in my videos saying this is really basically what I do, and you should find your own perfect diet. And yes, genetics play a role. They're not everything, but they do play a role. And some people have they have a tendency to gain weight quicker based on their genetics. But genetics doesn't necessarily determine what will happen. It just determines what can happen. And you have to know through your diet whether you're feeding those genetics or not. And it's the same with disease as well. Some people have a tendency, like I have a tendency to have really bad skin issues. And I have a tendency to get really inflamed. And I have a tendency to have certain issues that my parents have. But if I feed myself right, I don't see those issues. So I don't actually feed the genetics. I don't give my body the reason to react that way. So the ectomorph and the mesomorph and the endomorph, they do play a role. But everybody can get to their perfect body if they figure out the right diet for themselves. I mean, I don't think everybody should go 80-10-10. I don't think everybody should go raw till 4. I don't think everybody should do that. I think everybody should get ideas, do the experiment, and then figure it out for themselves. And don't look to someone to give them their diet. They need to look intuitively inward to find their own diet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good idea. I wanted to see where I would land naturally, like eating this way, like a starch-based diet. And it's been about a little over 2.5 years now. And at some point, at least 6 months or more ago, I sort of felt like I had reached sort of an equilibrium. Just eating potatoes, whatever, vegetables and fruit, and exercise. Nothing crazy. Taking walks, doing some calisthenics, 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
And but then when I see you and some others, I'm like, well, if I want to get to that level, something's got to change. And food-wise, I don't think there's much that I want to change as far as like reducing calories or anything like that. So it's really about putting in more effort, with the workouts. Yeah. And one thing that happens in my case is boredom. Like when I do any particular exercise, push-ups, pull-ups, after 2 sets, I'm kind of like, repetition just drives me insane. It's really, really incredibly boring. So, but I've seen like people that are recommending 4 sets and even more reps. Like they'll do sort of like a drop set routine where they keep going and going. And so the intensity and the effort is much more because you got to trigger the hypertrophy. And what's your thought on that as far as that aspect?
Yeah, I do a lot of drop sets, actually. It's part of my training routine. And I also, I do actually have a program now that I follow, my workout routines. I have the same exercises that I do every day, and the sets change, the rep ranges change depending on what part of the week it is. But but yeah, drop sets are a part of that, and I push myself to fatigue, and then I do a lighter weight, push myself farther, do a lighter weight, push myself farther. Sometimes it's a double drop set, sometimes it's a triple drop set. It depends on how much energy I have, and if I slept well the night before, if I ate well, if I have enough energy in my body to do that. But yeah, drop sets are awesome. I mean, you kind of got to know how to do it. It's really actually pretty simple. I mean, if you know how to exercise your body, you just take a weight and you do, let's say you do between 8 to 12 repetitions. As soon as you get to muscle fatigue, you drop the weights, pick up a lighter weight, do the same set till you reach another, muscle fatigue. So yeah, it's definitely recommended. I also think about boredom. Not a lot of people like to go to a gym. I don't need to go to a gym. I have, some stuff in my backyard. I can do body weight exercises, handstand push-ups, but I like to go to the gym because it motivates me to get through the boredom, get through to the next set, because I don't always want to be there. I don't always want to be exercising, but I feel like now that I'm at the gym, I'm accountable. And so that helps me get through some of the factors, the psychological factors that make it difficult to exercise. I have friends there, people that I like to see. I have people that I actually motivate while I'm there, and motivating them makes me feel good, and it gives me more energy to exercise. So the whole gym environment for me is good. Some people call it a meat market, some people whatever. It all depends on why you go there.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that I gained like the strength and some muscle. Like I've never felt lats. Like now I have. I can feel underneath because I've been doing. I started with negatives, chin ups, because I couldn't do even one chin up, and
Yeah.
then I bench, you build up, and then I went to pull ups, and once you can do 10 or 12, it's like okay, and then you're just going to repeat that, and that's where the issue comes. Like, and so then I got this convict conditioning where there's kind of a progressive approach. So once you can do that, you try to maybe get to a one arm pull up, or if you're doing handstands, you try to do handstand push ups, and eventually a lot of one arm push ups. So there's some sense of progression. But that's similar to when people hit a plateau with their weight. They're asking a lot of times, like, I'm not losing any more weight. What should I do? And my sense is it's not really so much the food and having to eat more, but you got to up the game and up the intensity. And obviously you got to make progress. You got to try to increase the weight. Otherwise, nothing's going to change muscular wise.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand how much muscle plays a factor in calorie burning and fat burning, because most people think of fat burning as cardio related. And honestly, I don't really do any cardio. I might run once or twice a week for 20 minutes, but I actually don't have to do cardio to stay lean. I actually eat clean, so my diet is really plays a huge part in how lean I am. But I do a lot of intense body muscle training and resistance training. And the fact that you tear your muscles down and your body is constantly working to repair muscle tissue, it takes a lot of energy. And so in most cases, when you do cardio, you go to the gym and you're burning, I don't know, a couple hundred calories at that point in time. And you might burn fewer calories than that when you're doing weight training or resistance training, but you're boosting your metabolism for hours. So your body is like, fixing itself and repairing itself, and that takes energy. And so you're really upping your metabolism and the amount of calories that your body can actually burn in every 24 hours. You're upping your BMR. So muscle building, I think, is just as important, if not more important, than cardio when it comes to fat loss, not just muscle gains.
Yeah, and that's what I prefer. Just as an activity, I prefer to do, weight training than cardio. Like, especially long distance, or what do you call it? Long distance cardio. It's just not fun for me.
Yeah. I think there's also something to be said about the way people release energy when they're weight training and strength training, because it's not just about pushing weights around and building muscle. It's also about moving the energy that's stagnant in your body, moving it out, and sometimes moving it out forcefully, because a lot of people psychologically are frustrated and they're pissed off and they're upset. They don't like their life situation, and they don't really know they don't have any outlets for that energy, because it is all energy, really. If you're frustrated, it's energetic. It's psychological, but it's also energetic. And that energy gets stagnant. So a lot of times when I go to the gym, I feel that energy being released. And so sometimes people will watch my videos and they're like, oh, your negatives are too fast and your positives are too slow, your positives too fast, whatever. They'll give some sort of criticism, and that's cool with me. But sometimes I'll work out simply to get the energy out. And it's important to me to feel how fast I want to move at that time. I usually do slow range of motion because it's better for muscle growth and it's also better for the joints. But sometimes I just like to push that weight out and not really care how slow or fast I'm going, just get the energy out.
Yeah. So let's, for people that are trying to emulate what you're doing essentially push pull legs 3 times and then a day, maybe a day rest, and then you're doing it again. So that's 6 days a week. And
Right.
when you do, say, chest, how many different exercises and sets would you do for that, typically?
Let's see. I'll do because in my push days, my chest and shoulders are kind of mixed together. Like I'll do like a chest and a shoulder, then a chest and a shoulder. So I think there's 4 chest exercises and 2 to 3 shoulder exercises. So, but like I said, my routine is more geared towards a bodybuilding routine now, so that I can put on more mass, and it's working quite well, just as long as I eat enough and the right kinds of foods. Yeah, I think I do around. Let's see. I have an incline. I have a flat bench. I have a cable cross. I have, dips can also be included in chest because it works really good on your. You can't really separate the areas. Like you can't just do lower chest, but it's a really good emphasis on the lower part of the pectoralis major muscles. Bar dips. So I would say there might even be 5 chest exercises. So yeah, 5. There is 5.
So when you say bodybuilding, you mean you're trying to isolate certain muscles in order to sculpt them? Is that what you mean?
Yes and no. The bodybuilding routine is just simply more intense and it's longer. It's actually a more advanced version of what I was doing before. Much more intense, a lot longer, and I'm discovering actually how far my body can actually go. And it kind of brings me back to my gymnastics days when we would do our 3 hours of practice on the different apparatus, and then we would do an hour of strength, just pure strength. We'd be doing bar dips with our teammates, hanging from our legs, and we do, iron cross pull downs and with all kinds of resistance. I mean, really, really heavy strength training. And we'd be doing that for at least an hour. And now that I'm doing a more bodybuilding type of routine, it kind of feels that way, where you're putting your body through a lot of intense resistance for a longer period of time and pushing your muscles farther than you would before. So it's kind of the same kind of exercises, just more intense and a little bit longer. And also, it's good to be intuitive too when you're working out for a long period of time. When you feel like you're at your end and you haven't finished your routine, you got to stop anyway because you have to listen to your body. Because sometimes I'll be in a training session where I've completed 75 to 80% of my exercises, and I feel done. I feel like I'm finished. I don't have anything left in me. I don't continue on. I go home.
Yeah.
And hopefully try to finish the next time.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been looking at, similar to what I did when I decided to go plant-based. I researched everything. I watch all the documentaries, read the books, and watch all the videos and interview doctors. And bodybuilding has a lot of conflicting information, a lot of variation in how to do things, how to gain muscle. And there's one other guy that I've been watching, and I'm sort of coming to the conclusion that, like you said, it's longer, it's more fatiguing the muscles, and there's different ways to do it. Like one interesting guy that I watched recently was, they always talk about strength, low reps, and hypertrophy, higher reps, but what he was saying is like you have so many muscle fibers, and when you go heavy, it's a faster way to fatigue. But then you hit that point where you can't, because it's so much weight, you're not going to be able to do that next rep. So when you use a lower weight, now you can fatigue those other muscle fibers that are remaining that are still aren't fatigued. So, like I say, I'm trying to I try to do efficiency with diet as far as and same with weights. Like what's the least I can do to get results? Like why do extra, right? And so, but I've sort of discovered that it seems that, well, between the effort and the amount of sets, it definitely is more than people might be doing. Because like if they're hitting a plateau and not getting the results, it's like you also said that you hit a your body gets used to that particular exercise, and you need to change it. Um, but I also think like say for example you hit a plateau and you're like, well, do I stop doing this bench thing and do a different exercise, or is it that I'm not doing enough reps or I'm not putting in enough effort? Trying to troubleshoot what the actual
Right.
issue is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one way that the body naturally adapts to the plateau is that you simply add more weight to what you're doing. But you mentioned something earlier that was important about the different muscle fibers being used, because when you do heavy weights, you fatigue before all your muscle fibers have been fatigued. And so that's one of the reasons why I do a heavy strength day, push-pull legs strength, and then push-pull legs hypertrophy in the same week. So I'm actually engaging all of that. And, drop sets are included in the hypertrophy day. So everything gets hit twice a week. And that's one of the most important things when someone is natural and they're trying to put on muscle. If they want to build more muscle efficiently, they have to train the same muscle groups at least twice a week, because we don't have the assistance of the anabolic aids that people use when they want to build muscle quickly. I mean, people that take steroids, they can put muscle on so fast and so easily with a lot less work. And people that train naturally, they have to kind of hit it regularly. I mean, and I used to when I was younger, I used to work out, and I had this rule where if I train and I get sore, the moment I'm not sore anymore, I go back to that same muscle group. And if it's 2 days later, I go back to that muscle group. If it's 3 days, I go back. But sometimes you don't get that sore after you start getting used to it. So I kind of had to adjust that a little bit, and I actually reached out for help, to get a new program. But like you said, hitting all the muscle fibers. So it's important to do, if you're going to do strength training, to do the strength and also do some lighter reps or drop sets to hit the rest of the muscle fibers, fatigue the rest of the muscle fibers.
Yeah, yeah. They were talking about the fact that strength is more like being able to recruit more fibers at one time in order to lift a heavier weight. But it's really it's kind of interesting because it's not really a difference. In a sense, it's not really different strength versus hypertrophy, because it's just fatiguing the muscle fibers, and then strength would be utilizing more of them at the same time. Because you tend to see anybody who can lift a lot of weight, they're going to be big, right? It's not like you're going to lift this massive amount of weight and still be really skinny and small. I mean, it just doesn't.
Totally. Yeah.
So
You still get growth.
the
Yeah, you
idea
still
that it's
get growth
not
for
really,
sure.
it's totally separate seems ridiculous to me. But I know the value of it is you're recruiting, you're working on recruiting more fibers. And I also feel it may help certain people with intensity, like by having more weight, you're forced to kind of move that. Whereas if you
Right.
just relied on your own weight, or if you relied on a certain typical weight that you were using, you're not pushing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I also really enjoy the feeling of being strong. I mean, it translates into everyday life, which is great when I'd be able to pick up the bags and pick up my kids and jump with them and play with them, and I've got them on my back and doing all kinds of silly stuff. But it really translated into real world situations when you don't have to rely on someone else to move things for you and pick things up for you. And I have a parking garage where I live. I live in an apartment structure, and I park downstairs, and I've got 10 different bags of groceries. And I think to myself, I can probably bring all these up at once because I know my own strength, and I just love the feeling of being strong. And a lot of people, for lack of a better term, poo-poo the concept of bodybuilding because they think it's all vanity. And in some cases, it is for a lot of people. But for me, I absolutely love the feeling of being strong. So as I'm going from doing exercises that are using 25 kilo weights, then I move up to 30 kilo weights. Now I'm at 32 kilo weights, and I'm starting to go up and up and up, and I'm doing heavier and heavier bench press. I love the feeling of that progression.
Yeah, and like in my wife's case, she's a small frame. She's like 110, 112 pounds, and doing weight bearing exercises is really important for the bones, like you talked about earlier. Not just for women, but doing weight
Oh,
bearing
no, I
exercise.
know it's a good point. Sorry to cut you off, but my parents are hitting their 70s right now. My father just turned 70, and they went vegan 6 months ago, and seen incredible health improvement. And my dad went off cholesterol medication for the first time in 30 years. He just went off blood pressure medication. Who does that at 70? Go off medication, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But he never did resistance training, and he had a bone density test, and his bone density is really low, so he has to actually start doing some bone density, some resistance training to increase bone density. And you made a really good point, because a lot of people don't think of that aspect. They just think of muscles, and we talked about this in the beginning of our discussion. And when the muscle pulls on the bone gets stronger because it has to. It has to deal with that force. And one of the best ways to increase bone density is to pull on the bones, and not just take calcium pills, all day. Get the muscles pulling on the bones, and give the bones a reason to get stronger.
Yeah, like I look at astronauts in space and that, they don't, even if they took calcium tablets, it's not gonna help. People think that just take calcium and you're gonna have strong bones, but it's really the weight bearing exercise. What would you recommend for a beginner as far as a weight training program? Because that's different from your more advanced level.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, a beginner. You mean someone that has actually never done any kind of resistance exercise?
Yeah,
Body weight exercises are really great. And the thing is, you have to play with angles. So say, for instance, if you do push-ups, and some people say, I have a hard time doing push-ups. Well, you can either increase the angle where your head is higher than your feet, and that makes it easier. So you take a bench, and you do push-ups on a bench where your feet are on the floor and your hands are on the bench, which makes it a lot easier. Some people can actually do that on a bed or on the side of a table or whatnot. But just do simple body weight exercises and get your joints used to those kinds of that kind of resistance and that kind of stress. Because for a beginner, push-ups. I mean, we're not even going to talk about pull-ups. Simple push-ups and some crunches, and maybe even some exercises where you have your arms on a chair and the chair's behind you, and you're kind of doing like some press-ups. Those kind of things can make someone that doesn't have that kind of experience really sore. So what I recommend for beginners is to just touch all the body parts, push some things, pull some things. If you have some little weights at home, pull on those things, do some overhead press, do some shoulder raises, simple things, and get your body used to that kind of range of motion, and your bones and muscles used to that kind of stress. And also, for beginners, it's essential to strengthen your abs and your lower back before you start putting too much stress on the rest of your body, because you have to have some good core strength to be able to handle more resistance and more weight. But also, get a trainer and go to a gym, and get a couple of personal training sessions. You don't have to go with a trainer for months. Get a trainer for a week and have them show you some basics, some beginning basics. And if people that don't have the money, or they don't want to go to a gym, then you can look online for beginners strength training exercises. But body weight calisthenics, things like that are really good. I mean, we watch videos of extreme calisthenics, where people are doing planges and handstand push-ups and all kinds of crazy stuff, which takes a long time, to reach that level. But there are some really great basic beginning calisthenic videos out there.
yeah, yeah. Usually it's like the total body in one shot, and they recommend that 2 or 3 times a week.
Totally.
Instead of splitting it up like you're doing now, they kind of do it all in one. That's
Right.
essentially
And actually,
that's what I was getting at.
yeah, I mean, what I did with my muscle building challenge in the beginning was I did a certain routine that got me to a certain point, and then I plateaued. And then what I realized was, hey, that was actually really good, because it prepared my body for the next level of intensity, which I'm now doing. And even the owner of the gym that I go to always comments on how I did it right. I didn't necessarily plan on doing it this way; it just kind of happened that way. But how you go from you test your own limits, stay with those limits for a little while, push them, and then restructure what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay, I think we've covered most of the muscle gains. If people have more questions, they can ask, and I'm sure check out your channel as well. But related to, I just want to talk a little bit about your plant-based journey, like why did you decide, or when and why did you decide to go vegan, plant-based?
Yeah, I mean, it was a couple of years ago, and my wife had always mentioned it. And because I was a personal trainer and I was eating a lot of animal products, and I believed, like most animal, based diets, people that are on an animal-based diet or trainers believe that you have to get your protein from animal sources. And they call it the high-quality protein, which is now ridiculous to me when you really think about it. Um, and she would mention it, and I was like, no, we can't do that because, we need animal protein, and I'm going to waste away, and I'm going to lose my fitness level and my muscles, and it's going to be harder for me to train, and I don't know what's going to happen. But she would watch some videos, like Earthlings and some Michael Greger, Dr. Michael Greger videos and some Dr. McDougall videos, and she'd show me every once in a while. I was like, yeah, that's neat, but I can't do it. But it would stay here, because I'm kind of an open-minded person. And if someone mentions something to me, I'm not going to dismiss it immediately. I'm going to kind of leave it there just to kind of check it out.
That's kind of weird.
And
So that's kind of weird. Most people like won't do that, right? They have their beliefs and they won't
well,
change.
I mean, I guess, in my early 20s and through my 30s, I consider myself a spiritual person where open mind, meditated, inner peace, trying to bring peace into all situations, positivity. And so when I would see people on vegan diets, and 15 years ago, there weren't that many great examples of vegan bodybuilders, and the examples of what we see today online. So I was looking at people that were more towards the earthy, skinny, thin, frail looking vegans, and I was like, I don't want to be like that. And that's what I thought what would happen if I went vegan. So I kind of dismissed it, but in my search for truth and in my search for health, I left it there because I said to myself, I can't dismiss it until I know the facts. And then my wife started watching videos, and I started kind of watching some of them. And then I saw a video one night, Uprooting the Leading Causes of Death by Dr. Michael Greger. And that video hit me so powerfully, and the logic in that video. And that day I was eating a bowl of turkey, ground turkey, in front of my wife, saying, "Do you want some?" and and she's like, "No." And she was making like a chickpea omelet, and I'm like, "I'll try some of that, but I got to have my animal protein." And I saw his video, and the next day I was vegan.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was like, it just went right in. It opened up that space that I left for it, and I said, I can't dispute this. It's too overwhelmingly correct to go against it. And the next day I was vegan for health reasons. And then I challenged myself. I'm like, okay, well, now that I'm vegan, I got to go to the gym more so I don't lose my muscle. I got to work out more, train more. So I started going to the gym more regularly, and I went right out and bought soy protein powder because I'm like, I got to fill in everything that I'm missing so I don't waste away. And then what I started to realize was I'm not just not wasting away. I'm actually building muscle really easily. And I'm not as sore as I used to be. And I'm recovering faster. And do I even need the soy protein? And then I started studying, just like you. Your mind is inquisitive. And I would keep studying. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do an experiment. I chucked the soy protein powder and just started eating food. And at the time, I still had some of those mock meats and mock cheeses and stuff like that in my diet. And I just kept removing those things one by one and seeing if I would waste away, and I never did. And then everything started to become ethical because I started allowing myself, and a lot of people don't do this because they don't like the way it feels, allowing myself to become exposed to the Earthlings video, those kind of, the animal cruelty videos that show all the stuff that goes on in the slaughterhouses and in the farms and factories and everything. And I actually made myself watch it, and it brought me to tears, and it still does this day. It really brings me to tears. And then the whole thing became even more powerful. I'm like, now I'm ethical, and now I'm doing it for health reasons. I'm now the complete package, and now I have to do something about it. And, it kind of birthed the YouTube channel. So a lot of my videos, I show what's possible on plant food, and every once in a while I'll throw in some of those ethical reasons. But I wasn't really planning on going vegan, but I was always, what's the right word? I was always fascinated by the concept of eating clean food from the earth, and that's all that you ate to sustain you.
Yeah.
I was always fascinated because I was always fascinated with like the way that the Japanese ate and the Okinawans ate. Very little fish. They still would have some, but very little meat, and the majority of their diet was starch. And I was like, that's really fascinating. And one day I want to eat like that, but I don't want to lose my muscle. So I had to kind of prove all this stuff to myself. And that's why I think, people like you and myself and other YouTubers who are proving it to themselves, why it's so important, because we get to document that, post it, people get to look at it and say, it is possible. And then look at another one and say, it is possible. And then look at another one, a woman, and then a guy, and then a 40-year-old, and a 20-year-old, and they go, holy crap, this is possible. And then they have the courage to make the shift.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I think I'm really happy that you're putting yourself out there, and the more people see examples, it just gets out there, and everybody sees all these people that are doing it. Whereas before with the internet and YouTube and all that, they didn't know anybody or see anyone that would be eating this way. And
it's one of the reasons why I'm actually doing some certain exercises with my son Dylan, who's 7, going on 8, and he's in gymnastics. He just loves gymnastics, kind of like his mom and dad. And because he's doing gymnastics, I can see him building muscle. And he's a total vegan. He doesn't even want animal products, and which is amazing.
Yeah. And
so I'm working with him personally and doing exercises with him that are actually building a lot of strength and muscle. And you're not going to have your 40-year-olds and your 50-year-olds and your 20-year-olds building muscle on a plant-based diet. You're going to have your 7, 10, 12, 15-year-olds, with strength and muscle tone on a plant-based diet. And that is unheard of still. Because people say, well, a kid has to get to a certain age before you start doing strength training, and that's not necessarily true. Intense strength training, yes. But all children should be doing some strength training. All children should be pushing their body weight around and holding themselves up on their arms and strengthening their bones as they grow. I mean, if a child does an incredible amount of impact sport between the ages of, say, 5 and 18, they may stunt their growth a bit. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about resistance training, simple resistance training that most children should be actually doing with their bodies at this age, that they actually want to do by themselves anyway, by climbing trees and running around the yard and doing handstands and rolling around. But I'm just directing him, and what I'm seeing is a really wonderful gradual increase in muscle tone on my 7-year-old boy. And it's not like a crazy workout routine. We'll do some handstands and some push-ups. We'll jump on the trampoline. We'll do some forward rolls, and stuff like that. And he might pick up some little, 3-pound weights and pull them around a little bit. But he's building muscle on plant food at age 7, and it's incredible. So at some point I may document that, but I'm not quite closed on that yet.
Yeah, because you might get some pushback in YouTube too. But I think it's a really interesting area, and I thank you so much for chatting about this. And I really, I recommend everybody go check out your channel, Guilt Free TV. I'll put a link in the video here so people can check it out. Is there anything else you wanted to mention that you have available or that you're working on?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate you and everything that you do. You're a great channel. You also a great inspiration. And come visit the channel. There's a lot of fun, videos on there, food, lifestyle, fitness. I'm working on developing a website right now, putting together a recipe book because I do a lot of food videos, which I like doing. Just stay tuned for some really cool interviews with people. I just did an interview recently with David Carter, the 300-pound vegan, the NFL defensive lineman, that I'm going to be having go up soon. I'm doing an interview soon with Dr. McDougall, which I can't wait to do, which I'm actually going to talk a lot about children's nutrition on a vegan diet.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I got that inspiration from you. But yeah, I mean, if you come to the channel, you'll find some cool stuff, and hopefully I'll see you there in the comment section.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to go check you out because it's one of my favorites. Well, thanks
Yeah,
so
well, thanks,
much,
Joe.
Jeff. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll talk to you soon. Hopefully, we can do some more in the future. On some other topics, perhaps some cooking and some. You can dance for us or something like that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I'll bust a move.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks, Will.
Okay, talk to you later, Jeff.
All right, see ya.
See ya.